Welcome to a new episode of the brand called You. Today I have a young millennial who has achieved a lot in his very, very short working life. Jayant Jha, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jayant is a BCom from Delhi University. He's worked for Wipro, Quattro, Lemon Learn e-services, and he is the co-founder of Yaantra. Jayant, tell us a little bit about your early life and some of your learnings and your challenges.
Sure. So, just to start with my educational background, so my dad was in armed forces. So I went to Sainik School, Riva. So I did my schooling from there. So just I'll say a line about Sainik School. Sainik schools are like they were formed in 1962 by Jawaharlal Nehru for the sole purpose of sending people to the armed forces.
Correct.
So my aspiration, I grew up in an environment where I wanted to join the armed forces. That was the entho while I grew up. And being up since I went to Sainik School, our teachers used to say that we focus on overall development of students. It's not only the education that we focus it. So we didn't realize that when we were in the school, but when we came out of the school, we realized that they were absolutely true. So I did my schooling from Sainik School, then came to Delhi, did my BCom. Just after the BCom, I started working with Wipro. Spent a year with Wipro, then moved to Quattro Global Services. Quattro, I was there for quite some time, almost like 3 years. And then went out and joined a startup called Lemon Learn. The brand was E144. So E144 was into managed IT services. So spent good 3 years with them. So E144 was a great learning experience because there I got an opportunity to lead a large team at a very young age. So I joined them when I was barely 21. So I joined them into like 3-4 member team and then grew with the company. So when I left them, almost like was heading the entire after sales services.
Wow.
And their enterprise business, which were largely spread across 10 cities in the country. So then one fine day, idea came in and started working on it. Loved that idea, so quitted my job and went out with 2 of my colleagues to start this company.
So, that's an amazing journey. You covered a lot of bandwidth in a very, very few years. And it's interesting to know that, your dad was in the armed forces. My dad was also in the armed forces.
Wow,
so
that's
I'm always delighted to meet, as they're called, army brats.
Right.
Pleasure to meet you again.
Likewise.
So, Jayant, let's talk of Yaantra. Is it Yaantra or Yantra?
It's Yaantra.
Yantra, but spelled with a double A.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about Yaantra. What was behind your forming this company?
So see, my memory goes back to 2012. 2012 was in time when everybody had phones, but it was about Nokias and Blackberries. I too had a Blackberry. One fine day it stopped working, and I was trying to get it fixed. So the first thing was to find out a service center because that's what generally people do. So I went to the service center for Blackberry. Then they told me that it's gonna take 3-4 weeks to get it fixed. So I got very irritated that 3-4 weeks I can't be with my phone. It was a business phone. So I realized that I can't give my phone away. So then somebody said that why don't you go to the local market? So I went there. In every store that I went to, I was not very confident of giving the phones to get it repaired. So the experience was not up to the mark, right? So then I started thinking that India is such a big market. Everybody has a phone. It's so much of important to us. Why? How is it possible that after sales services not at all given any attention? Then I started putting the dots together and realized that there is an opportunity here to bridge in the gap and create a real business. So I started discussing this idea with 2 of my colleagues, Ankit and Anmol, and who are my co-founders today. Then we stepped out and started this company. So when we started the company, the idea was to focus on giving the best possible service experience to consumers when it comes to their smartphones. So we started with this model of picking up smartphones. Then we created a repair center where we would repair it and give it back. What we actually took care of was convenience. So you don't have to step out of your home to get your phones fixed. We took care of peace of mind, so data is secure. We will put the genuine components and we'll give you warranty after repairs. So that was the business model. We bootstrapped it almost for 1.5 years. We ran the company on our own money. It was like after 1.5 years, we raised our first round of investment. We started with little capital, but we were pretty lucky that we were able to break even within the first 6 months.
Wonderful.
So that's how the company started.
And what was Gadget Wood?
So the name of the company is Gadgetwood E-Services Private Limited.
Okay.
So when we started, the brand name was also Gadgetwood.
I see.
In 2016, we actually changed the brand name from Gadgetwood to Yaantra. The company name remained the same. So the only reason being is we had a lot of customers coming to us with a lot of confusion. So let's say that there's a store with the name Gadget Point or Gadget Store. So there was a lot of confusion happening. So we realized that to create a brand, we need some uniqueness. And then one of our board members came out with this name called Yaantra. Yaantra typically means machine.
Yeah.
So we realized that it's pretty fits into what we are doing, and then we kind of adopted that name.
So, one of the challenges that I have always faced when I want to get any of my phones or tablets repaired is that the service center never keeps to their commitment.
Right.
If they say they will deliver the phone back to me at the end of the day, you go back at the end of the day, it's not delivered.
It's not ready, yeah.
Or, it's 2 days, it's not ready. And they always have an excuse.
Right.
And as a consumer, once I have given my device, there's nothing I can do.
Absolutely.
Right? So tell me, what have been some of your learnings sitting on the other side?
So see, what we started and what we have achieved, I would like to kind of give you a little bit of glimpse of that.
Yeah.
So when we started, obviously we knew that turnaround time is a very important factor, because this was one of the problem that I faced, while I was getting my phone fixed, because I was asked to give it away for 4 weeks. So what I did was when we started with a very SLA driven service model. So today, when we started, how we started was that we would respond within 2 hours. We would pick it up, repair it, deliver it back within 48 to 72 hours. How we have evolved the business today is that what we do, let's say that if you have a broken screen, then we will come to your place and fix it then and there.
Okay.
So what's Yaantra's approach is that, look, we're trying to figure out that how can we make the repair process as simple as possible and as convenient as possible. So today what we do is a part of repair, we do it on site. So let's say you don't have to even give your phone. And there are things that cannot be repaired. There we take it to the service center where we repair it, give it back. But I'll tell you, see, there are a lot of challenges as well in the business. For example, let's say, sourcing components is one of the biggest challenge. And secondly, if you look at the smartphone, so for instance, let's say smartphones, if you look at all the brands which are operating in the country, and even if you pick up the top 5, top 6 who actually have 95-96% of the market share, you will find that there are almost like 400 SKUs into it. So it's not that, you only have 4 different SKUs for which you can maintain a spare part inventory, etc. So most of the companies or most of the vendors, or let's say the stores that you go to, they would actually not have spare parts. So they would try to source it, etc. And that kind of, leads to a lot of delays.
Correct.
So how we are trying to fix it is, as I said, that so we have simplified in our backend. What we have done is we have actually taken repair as a kind of a list where we figure out that, look, these many SKUs, these many problems, we'll fix it on site. And we have different SLAs for different problems. And for any issue, if we are not confident of delivering it in a particular time, we would rather convey it to the consumers upfront, or, we would not put them in a situation where we wrongly commit something.
So tell me, you're in the B2C space.
Right.
And handling retail customers is always tough.
Absolutely.
How have you faced some challenges with irate customers screaming, shouting?
So I think, see, that's like, goes hand in hand, because, we do approximately 500 repairs every day.
My goodness.
So 500 customers coming to us across all our, all within the 6 cities we operate. So obviously customers don't come to us, we go to them. So of course, see, there are times, when hiccups happens. There are times when the customer's expectation is something very different than what you are expecting, right? So see, what we have realized is, and while we have traveled a 7-year journey, we have never left a customer dissatisfied. Okay. That's the thesis that we follow. So at times, like, if people are unrealistic, we still say that fine, let's do whatever possible we can do it for the consumers. Secondly, when we pick up a repair job, we also ensure that we are as transparent as possible. So for instance, if I tell you that, the cost of repair is going to be 2,000 rupees, then it is 2,000 rupees. And if we realize in the process that, it is exceeding, we don't bother the customer much on that. We would rather take that hit. So how we have the processes drawn up is as transparent as possible for the consumers. And in the process, if something happens, we live by our commitment. So we try to kind of, help the customers. At the same time, the team also understands that, look, the product that we are dealing with is very dear to the consumer.
Yeah.
It's an extension, so it's not just only a product. So that way there are emotional attachments. At times there are valuable data inside it. So we are pretty conscious of all these facts, and while we work, we ensure that these things are understood and they're taken care by it. And if there are times when something goes here and there, we ensure that we deliver it whatever best we can.
Very, very interesting. So, Jayant, if you look at the phone market,
Right.
there must be on an average, a phone coming out every week. Or
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was reading somewhere 40, 50 new launches happen.
Correct.
Numbers could be much higher.
Sure.
With 40, 50, with so many phones coming, and you spoke about SKUs and wanting to make sure your customer is satisfied because you don't want. So, how do you handle inventory of so many different devices? Because you're not saying that I only handle the top 5 devices.
Right.
What are your challenges in handling so much inventory SKUs?
So see, how we look at this now, there is 7 years of experience. If you would have met like 5 years before, then my challenges were at a very different
Correct.
level. So today, Yaantra collectively processes some 55,000 phones, 15,000 phones on the repair side, and then approximately around 45,000 we also sell products.
Okay.
So there's a huge number of products that we are processing at any point of time. And then we also work with a lot of insurtech companies, OEMs, etc. So now there's a lot of data that we process. So our teams work on a forecasting model. So how we look at it, let's say that these are the 4-5 leading brands. Then we look at the primary sales. That if this is the SKU which is being sold at how many SKUs have been sold in the market, and then we do back calculate and see that these many customers might call us for the problem, and based on that we maintain some inventory. There are some components that we would maintain. There are some components that we source real time. So for example, let's say while you are calling for a problem, and if you don't have the component, the moment a request is raised and the guy is coming to pick up your phone or do it on-site repair, our component sourcing network gets alert that this is the component that we need, and the real-time sourcing gets initiated.
Yes.
So there's a lot of work we have done in this area, and now today we have the our supply chain network is within the country, outside the country as well. So we kind of continuously are doing real-time sourcing, and there are internal tools that we use to kind of do the forecasting, ensure that the components are in place so that we are able to live by our promises.
So, you are a customer service company. What goes into training the large number of people you have to offer the best possible customer service? Because that's another poor experience that customers have.
Right.
Because your face is the individual across the counter.
Absolutely. So see, we have something called NPS that we track, Net Promoter Score, and I'm very happy and proud to say that our NPS is globally the best when it comes to smartphone repair companies. We currently are at around 65-70% of NPS scores. So when we started this, we were very clear that look, if something is going to take us forward, it is the customer experience that we deliver. And one of the important factors that we track is referral rates. So today 25% of our business on the repair side comes through referrals.
I see.
So these are the two important factors the company should track in day in and day out. So how we look at doing is our training teams looks at all the touch points that we have consumers. So from the first time that when you're calling us, or when you go to the website, or when you book up a repair request online, so we look at all the touch points. So there are different SLAs that every team has. So for instance, the customer service contact center team has an SLA of 2 minutes. So if you are logging on to yantra.com for a service request, you will get a call within 2 minutes. So that's how it operates at every level. So logistics team, when they are coming to you for repair, they have a repair turnaround time of 30 minutes. If somebody comes at your door to do your phone repair, then he will change your screen or whatever is needed in 30 minutes and close it. Similarly, what is the time taken from the time you raise a request to the time the guy reaches your doorstep? So all those SLAs are being very aggressively managed by all the teams within the company. At the same time, what we also look at very aggressively is that the costing part. So let's say that it shouldn't be the case that you're paying very heavily for repair, because see, people who would come to repair are value seeking consumers. So it won't be the case that on a 10,000 rupee phone you're spending 8,000 for repair. So we're also very conscious of that point that the cost that people pay it should be affordable.
Yeah.
So all those things we put into the consideration, and then there are soft skill trainings that we do, that how one should communicate with the customers, etc. So I think that helps us manage the overall experience well.
Interesting. So, Jayant, let me move to the second part of our
Right.
program, which is to get your advice for as a startup. Yantra has been a very successful startup. You said within 6 months you broke even,
Right.
and obviously you've raised money in a year and a half, and now you're well on the path. And I wish you lots of success.
Thank you.
But the first question is that you said you have two co-founders. There are multiple views. Should we have co-founders or should we go solo? What are your thoughts on?
So I don't think going solo is a great idea, because see, when you are starting up something, see, one thing that you have to define is that what exactly you're trying to build, and it also depends on nature of the business, companies, etc., etc. But see, when you're trying to build an enterprise, which is going to be as large as, let's say today we employ 1,000 people.
Wow.
It's practically very difficult for you to do everything on your own. So, and see, when you're building something, everybody starts building something with a vision that it is going to grow. It will not be a boutique shop, right? If it's a boutique shop, then it's a different story. So, in my view, see, had it been it was just me, it would have been extremely difficult for me. We are three co-founders. Apart from me, there are two more guys. And we have very clear focused areas. So for example, let's say one of our co-founders is a CFO. So he looks at finance very well, because in a day we do approximately 3,000 transactions, right? Other co-founder is a CTO. So the entire technical repair centers, the technology that we use, how the front end, the back end system should communicate, how easier it is for consumers to kind of interact with Yaantra, then our repair experience. So then our supply chain component, which was a very difficult part or nut to crack since we started. So had it been just me, it would have taken a lot more time to reach where we are today. Since we were three co-founders, we had very clear differentiated areas to focus upon, and everybody did their best job, right? So I think my advice would be that, though I still feel that Yaantra is in the very early stage, and I may not be the right person to advise, but I can tell you from my experience that multiple co-founders is always a blessing. So it's never a problem.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you are a young startup. You must have seen so many friends doing startups. What are some of the kind of mistakes a lot of startups make?
So I think, everybody makes mistake. It's not possible that you won't make mistake, because what we did, it started in 2012-13, was something that never existed, right? Obviously, the repair shops existed, but the way we were approaching the business never existed. So obviously, there are a lot of mistakes that people make. I think one thing which is very important is that you have to do the course correction very quickly. If you don't do the course correction quickly, then it is definitely going to be a problem, because every initiative costs. The biggest problem is that you always have limited resources. It's not going to be the case that you have a lot of resources and you will continue to make mistakes. And because if the moment you start doing something, it starts exhausting your resources. Be it people, be it capital, be it anything. And since we have limited time, it's not that opportunities are endless or the resources are endless. So you will have to be very conscious about where you are putting your capital, where you are deploying your people. Because if you're deploying your people or capital or anything into a wrong direction, which is not progressing, it definitely calls for an alarm. So what we have done at Yaantra since day one is, everything that we do, we have a mechanism of a weekly or a monthly review, and where we track progress. If something is not progressing, then everybody gets onto it.
Yeah.
We put our heart and soul into it and see that it progresses. And if we realize that it is not working out, either we do a course correction in approach or we quit that. Because if we don't do it, then it's really a problem. And I think that's a very important area, and people who are focusing on it, they'll find out a solution for that.
So, again, you mentioned that in a short time, you're now in 7 cities?
We're in 10 cities.
10
now.
cities.
Yeah.
So, for a lot of the people who will be watching your discussion with me, the biggest challenge an entrepreneur faces is scaling up.
Right.
What were some of the things you took into consideration before you started expanding?
So if you look at Yaantra, for good 3 years, we were only in Delhi NCR. So, And our model is like every city has to break even in a certain period of time. Then only it makes sense, because it is kind of a hub and spoke model. Everywhere we go, we have to create a repair center. It's not a technology platform that we have created once and it can go pan India at one, within a day. So how we looked at it is, first of all, we started operating in Delhi. Second was we looked at every aspect of the business and we drew metrics for it. So, for example, let's say how many repairs we need to perform in a city to get to a break-even level. Secondly, let's say that if we are going to set up a shop into different city, how is the supply chain network going to be?
Yeah.
Because end of the day, we have certain promises to make. It cannot be the case that Yaantra promises 2 hours repair in Delhi and 10 hours repairs in Bangalore. So do we whether it will be possible for us to deliver the similar experience? So when we draw our template, we looked at all this aspect, and then we started, kind of working backwards and see that whether it is possible to deliver something of this sort or not. Or let's say that, what is that additionally we will have to create to do it. So for example, let's say that, Indian, if you look at the large cities in India, there are different sort of challenges. For example, if you go to Mumbai, the logistic is a real nightmare to crack. For example, it's that you go to Bangalore, your travel times are going to be so squeezed. You probably, like, if you have an appointment in the evening, you might want to factor additional time. So all those things that we built in the algorithm, and then when we did some dry pilots to see that, how it is going to work out, etc. And when we realized that now we are ready to deliver, then only we went kind of, full throttle into those cities. So that was one of the, I would say that scaling up is really difficult. And that's where, when you don't factor all this time, all these factors into your planning, you really go wrong. And even if no matter how much planning you do, you will also face, on-ground challenges.
Correct.
But you need to have somebody who can look into it on day-to-day basis and then fix it. So these are some of the things that we actually did while we were scaling it up.
Interesting, very, very interesting. So, Jayant, the third part of our program is asking you a few personal questions.
Sure.
You're very young. You started 7 years ago, which means you must have been barely 21, 22 when you were thinking about this. At 23, you got going. Have you had any mentors in life? And if yes, what kind of advice have you received from them?
So very early when we started the company, one of the early investors that we had was Ashwin Chadha, and then on the other hand we had Ajay Chaudhary, one of the founders of HCL. So Ashwin and Ajay, they're really very good mentors, because when we started, I still remember the first time when we met Ashwin. So we were operating out of a garage in West Delhi. That garage still exists. So every day I cross, when I'm going to office, I see the first office right there. So that kind of pushes back the memory of the...
Well, Apple also started out of a garage, so...
Yeah. So, I'll tell you an experience. When Ashwin stepped in for the first time in the office, the electricity went off.
Okay.
And there was no power back. So we had to step out and do the meeting outside. So those days we still cherish, and Ashwin has been a real good helper. So, see, what I believe is that what I actually was looking for from my mentors, which happened in phases. So initially it was Ashwin sir, and then Ajay sir, and then now we have Vinod Soni, who is one of the ex-CEOs of Reliance Communication, and then he was a part of Bharti Airtel for a very long time. So he is a hands-on ops guy. So see, from the mentors, what actually helped me was that whenever we are in trouble, we kind of call them, or when looking for advice, they would always give an outsider's view. And it's not necessarily that the views are coming to please you. At times, they'll be very straightforward until that, look, this is absolutely bullshit, right? So when you hear those things, first thing is that to accept it, right? So that somebody is saying that, you are wrong, this is something which is not going to work out, then the first thing is to accept it, go back to the table, go back to the drawing board and analyze it, that, what is so wrong about it. And then kind of, rediscuss with people and kind of, implement that. So see, what happens is the reason why they play a very critical or important role is because, see, there are things which you are very sure of, which you will anyways do. And there are things where you are not very sure of, or you are less that 50% you're thinking that, it's definitely going to work, etc., etc. And 50% time where you actually need somebody else to tell you that, you're right or wrong. I think that's an area where people play an important role, people with experience play an important role. And when I started, not only me, the entire team was very young, because my co-founders were also like, one of them was 24, I was 23. both of them were like 24. So we were a very young team. So obviously we had a lot of energy and enthusiasm. We knew that if we are determined to do it, we will deliver. We will do things. That's not a problem. But we always, for example, one of the instances that I remember is when we were trying to set up office in Bangalore, and we put up a proposal in front of the board very early, which was like Ashwin and Ajay, etc. So people said that, look, what, if this is the time when you're going to go, you'll fall short of capital and you would not have the capital to kind of, scale it up very rapidly in the city. And then the response that you're expecting won't come. So then we kind of, we delayed the launch by a couple of months. So I think those are the areas where people actually come in with insights and tell you that this is what is factually correct. So I think that's where they play a very important role.
So what would be 3 adjectives that would define you?
See, I mean, one thing, I'm very determined and very focused. I would say I also work very hard. I mean, well, people continue to say that smart working is something that you should do. But what I believe is that till the time you're not working hard, you cannot be a smart worker as well, because it takes a lot of effort to actually find out the right direction. And when you find the direction, you can actually start working smart and then increase your pace. I think that's what we do. So when I still remember, all the 3 of us still work 7 days a week. From since the day we started. So yeah, that's what it is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple more questions for you. My next question is, what would be your biggest learning from some of the mistakes or some of the errors you may have made?
So see, I mean, one of the some of the errors that I have made, and what the takeaway was that, look, at times you actually need to step back and take an outsider's view, or you yourself need to imagine that how this or whatever you are doing is going to impact people or not. Secondly, most of the time, when we are building a product or a service, we tended to think that it is for us. But see, what you need to understand is that you are going to actually cater to a large bunch of consumers, right? And how are they going to react to it? So I think that's where what my personal learning is, that whenever you are creating a product or service, you need to factor in everything else. One should not consider that it is for a very selective course, or maybe put your consideration on it, that this is what I like. So that I like thing doesn't work a lot. So it has to be that everybody else likes it, whatever you are creating. So for example, let's say that if I have a preference for a black coffee, doesn't mean 10 people sitting here in the room would love black coffee, right? So while you're making something for masses, you should have a consideration for masses. I think that has been one of a great experience, and the good thing was that I got to learn all this thing in the very early. So I'll give you an example. So in 2014, the smartphone insurance business was picking it up very aggressively. Since we were into this space, we were very tempted to do that business. So I was after my team, after my co-founders, that we should do this, etc. But the moment we were kind of we started putting in resources, started putting in a lot of effort to build a product around it, we realized that there are 2 good big guys already in the market, and they have been they have raised hundreds of crores, right? So it was very difficult to fight those guys out there. So then we had to back off. So though we realized that the opportunity is very interesting, but the resources to deploy and build a business into that space will be something that we were not ready for. Yeah. So I think those things happened very early in the business, and now we have a comprehensive view and approaches like built accordingly, and then we kind of do.
Jayant, thank you very much. Chatting with you has been an absolutely incredible learning for me, and I'm sure everybody is going to watch this will marvel at what an amazing business you are creating.
Thank you.
Wish you lots of success.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You podcast. Be sure to visit tbcy.in to join the conversation, access show notes, and discover fantastic bonus content. You can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Simply search for The Brand Called You. Thank you, and see you next week.